And welcome in. And today we welcome in Mitch Davis. He joins me as we preview the Autozone Liberty Bowl. We'll also take a look at some of the other bowl games in the Southeastern Conference. Mitch, before we start today, wish you a very Merry Christmas here in this holiday season, and I hope you've had a good one.
Man, thank you so much. You as well. It's always good to come on different shows, and this is the first time on your show, and you came on mine a couple of months ago. So I like the home and home, Brad. I like home and homes. I'm a big home and home guy.
Yeah. The game in and of itself, the Liberty Bowl, I know you're very close to the city of Memphis. Kind of go back in history. You and I talk a lot about, Harold Grader's done such a wonderful job there with the Liberty Bowl along with Steve Earhart. What are some games that you remember that kind of jump out to you that you remember that you think fondly on a game that is very rich and storied in tradition?
Yeah, so Brad, I would start with that game last year at the Autozone Liberty Bowl between Memphis and Iowa State. That was such a monumental moment for my school, for the University of Memphis, and for the city of Memphis. You had 50,000 Tiger fans show up for the bowl game, and you had a great crowd from Iowa State. But that game, for me personally, meant so much because I lost my grandfather 3 weeks prior to that game. So that game was kind of a personal, kind of like, hey, I grew up in the Liberty Bowl with him, and that was kind of my final like send off to my grandfather to have that Tigers game last year. The Tigers win over Iowa State. I bought all the shirts, bought all the hats, and when I look back on the Autozone Liberty Bowl, that was such a crucial game for me personally. But other games in memory, I mean, I grew up a Kentucky and Memphis fan, so go back to 2007, 2008 ish. It was East Carolina, Kentucky. There was a 99-yard scoop and score from Myron Pryor from the University of Kentucky. And that moment in Autozone Liberty Bowl was awesome. I mean, you had East Carolina fans and UK fans. I mean, you had this, 400-pound SEC defensive lineman running down the field with the ball, and everybody was cheering him on. It was such a really fun moment. I look back on the history of it. You had the great Tulane team. I think it was 1998 when Tulane had that really great team. And you've had so many fun moments. And what people don't realize about the Autozone Liberty Bowl is how much it means to the city of Memphis. Not only just, for the fans that come into town or whatever, but Memphis loves college football. We are such, I say we, because I'm from there. That is my hometown. I love the city of Memphis. Memphis is such a melting pot, Brad, and I think you know this with so many fan bases there. You got Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Tennessee, Memphis State, Arkansas State, so many down the list. You got Kentucky, you got LSU, and all these fans come out to, support the Autozone Liberty Bowl, support St. Jude, support all the other just great events, the PBR radio there at the Agri Center I think it's usually before the bowl game. This year it's after on Saturday. But there's just so many great events. I think that it gives the city of Memphis, just like the WGC golf tournament does in August. Every August, all the greatest golfers in the world come to Memphis. It gives Memphis that spotlight to showcase what makes Memphis so special. And unless you're from there, unless you live there, just like the state of Mississippi, it is such a special and unique city. We have our issues, and I'm very open about that. Everybody follows me on Twitter. I'm very open about the issues that the city of Memphis has. But the Autozone Liberty Bowl, the WGC, and a couple other great events that we have throughout the city really gives us a chance to showcase the city of Memphis and what makes Memphis just so awesome. And I love it. And it's such a great way to, invite other fan bases to the city of Memphis. So hopefully I answered your question there, but I could go talk about for days about how awesome the Autozone Liberty Bowl. I grew up going to the game.
Yeah, I did too. And then some games I remember very fondly was one of the high points of Sylvester Croom's career at Mississippi State was beating Central Florida. Ole Miss, of course, has been somewhat a team that's been in the Autozone Liberty Bowl for a number of years. Back in '92, but there were very cold games. I don't know. I think the temperature is going to be much nicer on Friday when this game is being played. Mitch, looking at the Liberty Bowl Memorial Stadium now, of course, Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, a lot of renovation. The capacity only going to be around 42,000. I think it's going to create a really cool atmosphere. I think Arkansas is going to travel really well. We'll get into the Hogs and we'll get into Texas Tech in just a moment, the two opponents. But the stadium's going to be set up. I know there's been some challenges from a media perspective because they tore down the press box. but I think it's going to be a really, really neat atmosphere on Friday night.
Yeah, so I went to several Tigers games this year, just to go watch the Tigers, and one is as a fan and the other is media. But according to my understanding from Harold Grader, the gap that you see on TV between where the old press box was, right? They are going to have a gigantic American flag that fills that gap, hanging from I think two fire trucks, or they were working out the logistics of that. So you're going to still see the old Mid South Coliseum, but you're also going to have this gigantic American flag, which is going to be really pretty. And Brad, you know this, some of the prettiest sunsets you'll ever see are at the Liberty Bowl, and it's just so seeing that American flag is going to be a special moment. I think that people like to hate on it because there's a lot of renovations. I'm one of these that Brad. I grew up in the bowl. That is my childhood is at the Liberty Bowl, or the Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium now. But that it is going to be so cool to see. The Autozone Liberty Bowl does a great job of being so patriotic, but fans just going to be patient. The traffic around the Liberty Bowl is not much affected. I usually park in the red lot. So you come off Hollywood. Was it Hollywood and I think Southern or Hollywood and whatever. So you come off there. Now walking around the stadium is a little different. If you're like me, you like the Coletto's pizza. So you do have to, if you're sitting on the side with the press box now, with the old press box, you have to walk all the way around the stadium near the student section where the University of Memphis student section is to get that pizza. So there are a few minor little things, but really, I've talked to Harold. It sounds like they're going to do a really great job at kind of making lemonade with the lemons they're provided this weekend.
Well, the Liberty Bowl in and of itself has always been a patriotic bowl. I can remember in days past when Lee Greenwood was singing "God Bless the USA," and there's been so many patriotic tributes, and we're excited about the halftime show that'll be coming for you Friday night. And looking at what's been able to happen, Eddie Rabbitt is someone that I remember played the halftime show. It's always patriotic. The end zones always have the same type of square pattern. It's red, white, and blue, and that's something I've always had a lot of fond memories of. Is celebrating the United States of America with their Liberty Bowl, and I expect nothing any different. Let's take a look at two of the teams that will be playing in this year's AutoZone Liberty Bowl. The Arkansas Razorbacks come in at 6-6, 3-5 in the SEC. Finished the season on not a great note, and then all of a sudden, Mitch, Sam Pittman and Bobby Petrino, the offensive coordinator, lost a number of players. The good news, I think, in the long haul, is that they have done a tremendous job over the last couple of weeks in the portal. The bad news for the short term, they're going to have a very limited roster coming in to the Liberty Bowl against Texas Tech.
Yeah, so one thing that really just kind of stands out to me, and I got to cover Sam Pittman a couple of years ago in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl against Kansas, and he's a very gracious guy, and I know he gets his slack for not being the greatest of coaches, but he's a great dude. But this Arkansas team, man, they're weird. This is a weird Arkansas team. They're a team that can beat Tennessee, but then they're also teams that have close losses to A&M, to Texas. I mean, that Mizzou game was weird, bro. I don't know if you watched it that Friday after. That was a weird game. But this Arkansas team, they're looking for an identity. When I talked to Christina Long from Hog Illustrated, she kind of mentioned the guys that are left have a lot of pride in the state of Arkansas and a lot of pride in putting on for the red and white. So I think, when you look at these bowl matchups, and everybody talks about, the transfer portal this, transfer portal that, but you also have to remember the guys on the roster, they're staying for a reason. They're staying because they believe what Coach Pittman's doing. They believe in Bobby Petrino. So it might be a depleted roster, but sometimes, Brad, you know this in football, man, sometimes we get these matchups where you get this pride, and you played for that pride for the front of the jersey, and I fully expect to see Arkansas to be competitive. They're facing against a really good Texas Tech team. To me, that's like right there, breaking through to have this. We keep on waiting for Texas Tech to get there. To get to the CFP, to get back to a New Year's Six bowl. Joey McGuire has got that program rolling right now in Lubbock, and I'm a big Joey McGuire fan. I met him 2022 or what was the last in Texas? Whenever they played Mississippi State, 21 in the Autozone Liberty Bowl, and he was just taking over. This Texas Tech team, man, this matchup in itself is going to be a lot of fun. A lot of scoring is going to happen on Friday night.
Yeah, I want to get into Joey McGuire in just a moment, the resident of Texarkana, Texas. He's got a great story with how he grew up an Arkansas fan. Before we do, real quickly on the Arkansas offense, Braylon Russell, a talented running back, got into the portal, visited some schools, got out, got back in, got out. We heard from Sam Pittman a couple of days ago. He's been practicing with the team and has been practicing with more than half of the practices available for the Arkansas Razorbacks. He will be available for the Autozone Liberty Bowl. That's big news for Arkansas on offense. Also, Isaac Tesla, I think he's going to be able to go. The senior wide receiver, they had some playing. A number of offensive linemen are not going to be available, so you're going to have possibly a freshman, Kobe Branham, Emarion Harris, a redshirt sophomore. Also, they've got Brooks Edmondson, a redshirt sophomore. But a name that everyone remembers is Keyshawn Blackstop, the redshirt junior at left guard. Everyone's kind of looking at quarterback and Taylon Green. We saw what he did in the early part of the year. He got injured against Ole Miss whenever the Rebels went over to Fayetteville and played. But he's kind of been the straw that stirs the drink. And I think if they can get some things going offensively with Russell, and then we'll see what happens. Redshirt sophomore Rodney Hill may get some carries as well. They really need to try to do their best to try to solidify the line of scrimmage. But I think that's going to be really hard with so many new pieces on that offensive front.
Yeah, and what's funny is I'm looking here at the depth chart. You got Brooke Evanson at center, and he doesn't even have a profile picture on the 2D depth chart. Everybody else has their profile picture listed. He's just got a Razorback. So, things are going to look weird for Arkansas this go around. But when I talked to Christina Long, she said that the long term goals of Sam Pittman are still there. Of hey, let's get the offensive line. He's known for developing that offensive line, and I just don't know with this matchup. And you got so many young guns. I mean, I'm sitting here counting, Brad, and you've got freshman, sophomore, freshman, sophomore. I mean, you go down the list, you've got 6 or 7 freshmen or sophomore playing against an 8-4 Texas Tech team. This is one of these matchups I don't see going in favor of the Razorbacks.
Well, I think a lot of it simply because Texas Tech's coming in, probably a little bit better team. I think they're going to have more players be able to participate in this game than Arkansas has. And let's go ahead and talk about Joey McGuire and Texas Tech. The Red Raiders, you just made mention, 8-4. They've had a good year in the Big 12. Joey McGuire grew up, like we said, in Texarkana, Texas.
I'm really fired up about this bowl and our opponent. I grew up a Razorback fan. I was actually telling the team whenever we knew who we were going to play. Some of you people, Don, you'll remember this because we're a little bit older than some of these younger people in here, but whenever you turned 15 or 16, you didn't get a mobile phone or a cell phone. You had your own line. So you had your mom and dad had a line, and then you had your own line. So whenever I turned 15, I got my own line. My number was 817-297-1HOG. We had season tickets for the Razorbacks almost my entire life. I have a lot of family. I was born in Texarkana, so all my mom's side's in Arkansas, and so I grew up calling the Hogs, and so I cannot wait to be playing Arkansas and hearing them call Pig Suey, and we come right back at them with some Raider power. This is a throwback of Southwest Conference opponents, a league that I grew up watching. And whenever they said that we get an opportunity to go to the Liberty Bowl, one of the longest running bowls and has such a storied history.
He basically said, I'm an Arkansas fan. I mean, we listened to the very introduction between he and Sam Pittman. And, boy, just such a likable guy. And you would have to think, Mitch, you made mention a moment ago how nice a guy he is. We've got 2 really good guys playing in this game.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand with what the Autozone Liberty Bowl stands for. I mean, it's all about class. It's all about dignity. It's all about patriotism. These are 2 guys that love America, that love college football. But Joey McGuire, when I first met him at the Autozone Liberty Bowl several years ago, or 3-4 years ago now, when Texas Tech played Mississippi State, he had just gotten hired. He's such an infectious guy to be around. I can remember in the pregame, we sat out there on the field, and I was getting to kind of know him and introduce myself, and he was, making a point to shake everybody's hand and get to know each and every media member, even if they weren't on the Texas Tech beat, which goes a long way. Brad, we're in this business where sometimes coaches, they don't like the media. They don't like talking to the media. They don't even like being around us. But Joey McGuire made it a point to make an introduction to everybody standing on the field that had a press pass. Whether it was a Texas Tech media member or a Mississippi State media member or an SEC guy, he was making a point to talk to each and every one. And I think that that's the way the culture, we always talk about culture. That's the culture that he's developed down there in Lubbock. And, Brad, you've been around college football for as longer than I have. And Texas Tech is always a program where when you think, man, I really, them in West Virginia, hey, I really wish that they could get to that next level, compete for a national championship. And they've had some good years. Patrick Mahomes was there, Michael Crabtree, and, other names like that. But Texas Tech, man, they have got their guy. And it's so good to, we in this industry, we have guys that, say, man, we really want to see him compete. And we really want to see him do well. Joey McGuire is one of those guys. I can't say enough nice things about him. I covered Mike Leach, and Mike Leach was one of those other guys that, man, hey, I wish he would have had a chance to compete for a national championship. So Joey McGuire is that guy. I'm excited. I know I'm an SEC guy, but, man, I love Joey McGuire.
I think the good news, if you're a Texas Tech fan, is some senior leadership across that offensive front will start in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. Sterling Porcher, Davion Carter, and Caleb Rogers. So 3 seniors that'll be starting across that offensive front. And I think that's going to prove to be pivotal. You look at Texas Tech, Mitch, they'll also be starting a freshman quarterback in Will Hammond. That's someone we'll be looking forward to see what he's able to do. They will have their senior running back, Taj Brooks. So just looking across their offense, Mitch, it looks like not only are they coming in with a better record, but it looks to me like the Texas Tech will be coming in with a lot more of the players they had during the season than Arkansas did.
Yeah, and I think that's so when you talk to Texas Tech people, they're very high on Will Hammond, and there's also his backup, Jake Strong, quarterback. But Taj Brooks is another guy that I got to cover his sophomore season or his freshman season. Time is slipping away. I realized yesterday, Brad, that COVID was 4 years away. So 4 years ago, so that kind of threw me off a little bit. So 3 years ago, I covered Taj Brooks in that bowl game against Mississippi State. He is a dynamic running back. And it's so cool to get to see him play. It's probably his final game there in Lubbock, and I think that that's going to be kind of special. Looking elsewhere, Mason Tharp, I've heard a lot of great things about him. So this Texas Tech offense, man, they can put up some points, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
Former Southwest Conference rivals. That really dates us. You start talking about the old Southwest Conference. 8-4, 6-3 in the Big 12. They had losses to number 20, then number 20 Colorado. They lost to TCU by 1 point, 35-34, and then of course the loss to Baylor, 59-35. Nothing new here. All shootouts. I expect a shootout for the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. We've seen a lot of high scoring in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. Kind of looking back at Arkansas's bowl history in the Liberty Bowl, they're 3-3, have won their last 3. And if you remember that Kansas game, you made mention the 22 Liberty Bowl, 55-53 in 3 overtimes. And then back in 2010 against East Carolina, they won 2017. That one was in OT. So Arkansas has been in some thrillers the last 3 bowl appearances in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Kansas game. I remember, Brad, I was there on the field. I left the press box to go on the field to do that during the game. And what I would do is during the overtime, I kept switching sidelines. So I'd run from one sideline to the next sideline, and I wanted to be in that moment. And finally, Arkansas was able to pull it out, and that was probably one of the top 3-ish best AutoZone Liberty Bowls in my memory. I mean, that was just such a fantastic game. Harold Grader made mention of that back in August when we talked about the history of the bowl game. He was like, man, that was a pretty cool moment for the Arkansas Rangers.
I just hope they kept the flag over the original press box.
I
would love to know if they've kept that. And
I want to say that's in storage somewhere.
I would hope they decide to put that somewhere on the premises. That has so much meaning. The AutoZone Liberty Bowl kicking off at 6 p.m. That's, of course, in Memphis. 42,000 the capacity. That's, of course, going to be on Friday night at 6 p.m. Mitch, anything jumping out to you on the SEC front in regards to bowls? I know Florida looked really good over their win over Tulane. Texas, of course, dispatched Clemson pretty handily. Ohio State, we know what happened to them. They beat Tennessee pretty well. We've got some games coming up. I don't know, anything kind of jump out at you with Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech? We've talked about Arkansas, Texas Tech. A&M and Southern Cal could be a, I don't know
It's a weird
what
game, bro.
I don't know what type of description we can say on that game. And then, of course, Missouri and Iowa is setting up to be a perfect Music City Bowl. I mean, I don't think there's a better Music City Bowl team than the Iowa Hawkeyes. So those are just some of the games that we have coming up over the next couple of weeks. You've got Ole Miss, of course, playing in Jacksonville in the Gator Bowl. And can't forget about all the college football playoff teams. Any of those games really jump out at you from an entertainment standpoint?
I would say probably Ole Miss and Duke. When you look at that matchup, I think it's good for Ole Miss to have so many guys that are playing in that game. I'm not able to go down to Jacksonville. Won't be a part of the in-person bowl coverage, but I'm going to be watching on TV. I'm excited to see Jackson Dart's last ride. His last game. Caden Prescorn, a guy that I covered at Memphis and now covered at Ole Miss. I'm excited to see what he does down there. But elsewhere, Mizzou and Iowa, that just feels like a Big Ten. I've always said Missouri fits in the Big Ten more than anybody else. So that feels like a Big Ten game. I don't know if they're going to get over 25 points or even 20 points. So it's going to be a very big slugfest. Elsewhere, I will say, Brad, I was shocked with Tennessee. I thought Tennessee was going to put up more of a fight. I'm a big Josh Heupel guy. I know it sounds weird coming from a Memphis guy, but I love what Josh Heupel's building up there in Knoxville. I was a little bit surprised with that. Elsewhere, Georgia without Carson Beck, I don't know what's going to happen. I've heard a lot of great things about Gunnar Stockton. We saw that in the SEC championship game. But can a freshman quarterback lead the Bulldogs all the way to win a national championship? I think they have enough to beat Notre Dame because I don't think Notre Dame is as good as some people like to say that they are. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see how these next 2 or 3 weeks play out for the Southeastern Conference.
I think it'll be interesting to see how Alabama plays too.
Yeah.
Because not being in the playoff, will they come out with a vengeance or will they come out?
How motivated are they?
I don't know. They've obviously had some defections, but they've done well in the portal as well. I think the game I'm really looking at, because I'm just different, is Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech. I mean, those are programs that have a lot of similarities with their school. Of course, Georgia Tech in Atlanta and Vanderbilt in Nashville. But what Clark Lee has done this year at Vanderbilt has just been incredible. The Commodores are 6-6 and 3-5 in the SEC, and there can be an argument that they should be 7-5. I thought it was a great job by Clark Lee. I'll be excited to see what he can do up against Brent Key and the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. That's, of course, the Birmingham Bowl, by the way. That's in Birmingham at the Protective Stadium, I think is the name of it.
Yeah, which matchup's going to be fun. That's an old rivalry. I didn't realize that they used to play for a trophy back in the day. And, Brad, I will say this. I know we've been talking a lot about football, but I do want to give a special shout-out before we get off this thing to SEC basketball. SEC basketball is off to an amazing start, probably the best start in our lifetime, and it's been a lot of fun. There's a big one in the city of Memphis on Saturday for those Ole Miss fans interested in that, between the Ole Miss Rebels and the Memphis Tigers there at the FedEx Forum.
And before we close out today, encourage you to go to the website, libertybowl.org. Tickets are available. 42,000 is what the capacity will be, and we expect a really fun football game between Texas Tech and the Arkansas Razorback. We'll be on site covering it for you and look forward to coming to you on site and, of course, after the game, recapping this year's Autozone Liberty Bowl. For Mitch Davis, I'm Brad Logan. We'll talk to you soon. The Autozone Liberty Bowl, Friday night at 6 p.m., and we'll have all the full coverage for you here on the Logan Media Network.